So in the most recent Federal Reserve meeting, it was originally expected that they were going to increase interest rates by 0.25%. And in the very, very end, they increased interest rates by 0.25%, which means that everything went exactly as planned, which is the reason why the stock market following that soared and skyrocketed, because it responded very, very positively to it. And it means that the current target rate now is about 4.5 to 4.75%. So in today's video, what I really want to talk about is really about what went on happening in that Federal Reserve meeting. I want to talk about its significance. If you are on unemployment, if you are looking to buy a house soon, if you care about our economy, this is going to be the video. So I definitely highly recommend watching all the way through, because this is the video that's going to cover all of that stuff. The storyline to it, really what's happening now, is that unemployment is expected to skyrocket and come back again. So that is one of the very, very let's just say breaking news in general that's already happening, but it's expected to happen even greater now to another magnitude coming forward in some time of the near future. But of course, all of this stuff, let's just get right to it and talk about in today's video. So we're going to get started, but real fast, as always, before we begin, if you guys enjoy videos like this, remember to smash the like button to share some support if you guys can, or you guys can watch to the end to decide. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just really anything. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So in the most recent Federal Reserve meeting, as just mentioned, is that they officially raised interest rates by 0.25%, which means that they've officially now started to descend into like what the amount that, they're going to be increasing rates by. It went up by 0.5%. Now it's back down to 0.25%. There's so many different points. And however, the news is that it is expected, however, that the good news is that Jerome Powell, who recently just celebrated his birthday, and I believe it was his 70th birthday too, if I believe and remember correctly. So huge happy birthday to Jerome Powell, because the reason we're doing what we're doing right now is because of a man that was born on that particular day. I believe his birthday was one of the first couple days of February. But the big idea is that because of what's been going on right now, he raised interest rates by 0.25%, and he did announce that it's expected that for the rest of the year, he's going to continue to raise the interest rate, but however, it's just going to be increasing now by a smaller amount. So that is some really, really good news, because it means that we've at least peaked through inflation already, and everything's now starting to kind of slow down and recover and gradually get better, at least according to him. We don't know what the actual future holds because it hasn't physically happened yet, but according to him, that's where he sees it. He sees it as a positive insight. Feel free to leave your particular comments if you think it's going to get better or worse. I personally think that it's actually just depends on what area of the economy you're talking about. Some areas I think it's actually going to get better. Some areas it's not going to get better. I personally think, on a personal insight, is that I think that the economy, inflation is hopefully going to get better, but a lot of other areas such as like unemployment is not going to necessarily get better. But of course, this is something that we kind of just is very debatable. So feel free to leave a comment if you guys have any particular comments or opinions about that. Now, on to some brighter silver linings, though, is that because, on the other hand, because they did increase the interest rate, what it does mean is, first off, is that inflation will be even more better controlled. So that is some really good news, because we are facing a lot of this right now. Groceries, everything is going up in prices. The other big thing is that it also does mean that our savings accounts, we're also going to be able to receive more money there as well. So this might potentially be, not now because they're still increasing the rate, but it might potentially be coming soon, the time when it might be worth it to consider looking at locking up a CD, because we are a finance channel at the end of the day. It might be it might be a reasonable time to consider looking forward into maybe considering a CD to try to lock up your interest rate so you can get it as high as possible and to try to fix up that rate. So that's really the story there. Now, when it comes to the world of unemployment right now, unemployment currently sits at about 3.5%. While that might not sound like a very, very high percentage, you got to keep in mind is that we live in a country that has over a couple 100 million people. So when you're in a country that has that many people, even just 3% represents at least 3 million people. That's a lot of people that are, individually that are unemployed in our particular world. However, with that being said, is that if you don't think this is enough people to really warrant something to concern about, then the big idea is that, however, is that it's expected to increase even further now going forward as they raise these interest rates, because a lot of companies now are starting to kind of struggle or be on kind of like an edge-like situation. So it's like they're doing okay, but they're very frightful about where their company is going to be headed in the very, very near future with everything that's happening right now. Now, we did make a video that talks a lot about the tech layoffs because right now at this current time, the biggest industry that has been impacted is tech. So I definitely highly recommend checking out that video. It's going to be at the end screen when you watch the end of this video at the very, very bottom. You can click it and definitely check that out. But the new information really to share is that right now they're finding that it's not just happening in the tech industry anymore. It's starting to spread into a lot of other industries. And we're talking about white collar jobs and blue collar jobs as well. So these are kind of, it's a pretty big breaking news kind of story because, for example, one industry that's now being impacted is also manufacturing. Things such as like manufacturing, shipping, all that kind of stuff. A lot of these industries are actually being impacted as well on top of the tech sector and what's going on there. And it kind of creates a little bit of a concern because it's almost like a domino where if one industry starts to suffer, all of the industries kind of are tied together in some way. Think of it like a little bit like a regular business, right? If you want to start a product-based business, you're going to need someone to manufacture the products, right? But then you're going to need a shipping company to help ship the items. Then you're going to need maybe a creative company to help market the item, to advertise, to tech, to design. So every business requires a lot of different skill sets. So although right now at this time it's currently hitting tech, it's expected that it's now starting to impact a lot of other industries like manufacturing, and it's expected that even more industries are now likely going to follow in the relative near future as well. It's also really important to notice is that there are some people that are unemployed in our country but are not necessarily counted in the statistic for unemployment, either again because they either fell off of unemployment or it's that they've kind of like they have fallen unemployed but they haven't made the effort to apply for unemployment in general. So because of that reason, they're not fully counted in the statistic because there's no record of them physically on unemployment at this time. Now, in terms of where our country is headed, this is a really, really interesting thing because right now there doesn't seem to be a very uniformed opinion about it. There is a lot of people that are very, very bearish and think that the economy is going to go down even more further. There's a lot of people that are actually relatively bullish. They think that the economy is going to be going up and going and improving, and it's already starting to improve a little bit there. It's very, very debated because right now the economy is kind of moving on a little bit of like a wavy swing. It's like up some days, down some days, up some days, down some days, and we don't really know where it's going to go. You know, inflation is improving, but then other areas it's not improving, it's actually going downhill. So we don't really know what it is. I do know is that in the world of the tech companies, however, they did say that Apple is the only company that hasn't really gone through a lot of layoffs right now, but they are also a company that didn't hire as much compared to many of the other companies back before COVID, not back before pandemic, but yeah, back during that time period, they were the only companies that didn't have a massive surge of hiring, so maybe that also has to factor into the decision as well. But the big idea is that the prediction right now in the foresight, it's very wide across the whole general spectrum. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any particular predictions as well. Now, depending on when you're watching this video, I do know is that there's going to be some upcoming dates to really know. For example, on February 14th, it is expected that that's going to be the date when the new inflation report is also going to be released that date. So we have to see how inflation comes out or what it currently looks like. It's expected to improve, but it is also still expected to be relatively high, which means that there's a lot of work to be done. The significance of everything mentioned really now at this, I guess to maybe just close off this video, is that right now at this time, we just are living through a lot of moments of uncertainty. We do have a lot of information to share, which we already did, such as like about the inflation rates, all that stuff, what's going on there. The interest rate obviously, you know, is going up and all that stuff, unemployment, everything happening in that world. But there is still just a lot of question marks that we just don't fully know as well, like what's going to be in the new report when it comes out on February 14th. But the foresight right now is that there is a lot of people that believe that a recession is almost definitely coming. There's a lot of people that do not believe the recession is going to be coming. But one thing for sure is that when it comes to the world of unemployment is definitely expected to be one of the biggest areas that's going to be impacted and rising going forward into the next couple of months as more businesses struggle. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, if anything, from this video. Because as more businesses struggle, it also means that there's less money to physically hire more people. And if less people are being hired, then it also means that more layoffs are going to happen, more unemployment unemployment is going to happen, and it's going to impact our job market. And if people don't have enough money, it also means that they're going to have a lot less money to physically spend in our world, which also means that it's going to help impact inflation. It's going to help to control inflation, and I think that's one of the good news. But it also does mean that businesses, as just mentioned, going back now, they're not going to be doing as well. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway to really take away from this video. But of course, what ends up happening in that report, what ends up happening, going forward from here, is the recession actually still going to happen? All of this stuff we have to find out in one of the future episodes of The Kevin Show. So that being said, that's pretty much what I really wanted to cover in today's video. So if you guys found that insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button or leave a comment for suggestions, rooms for improvements, or anything like that. It's always great to hear from you guys. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.